the air war were the maintenance guys. They worked at night. They worked with virtually no lighting. And as Nathan says, the weather in Italy was not good most of the time. And I don't know that any one of them ever was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross, but they should have been. And so we're so appreciative of having Nathan and Sedge Hill here with us today, and there are probably other mechanics from other bomb groups that are not at this meeting. But thanks again for all your good work. And now our next speaker is Thomas Boyd. He was a tail gunner with the 455th, and he had to bail out, and he evaded capture, and he's going to cover what happened to him and maybe his crew in that sequence.
How in the world are you getting that crate? As small as it was. My God.
I hope they got the microphone on, because I can't talk any louder than this. Is the microphone on? Can you all hear me?
You may want to have it a little closer to you if you can.
It's not on.
It is not?
No. It's on.
Anyone know about anything about microphones?
No.
Someone's got power switches. Is it plugged in? There.
There we go. Okay. All you had to do is tell me they got a switch on it, because I'm a flyboy. I don't know that stuff. Now, this ground person here, he know all about that. But I must say, the guy that was just talking was the men behind the scenes. And us flyboys thought the best of them. But I don't have any notes. They're all up here. And I'm going to start from the time I was drafted up until I invaded and the war was over.
Tom, you may want to speak closer to the mic.
Okay, is that better?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just going to fill in from the time I was drafted in January of 1944 until the war was over. An overview. I'm not going to go into too much detail. As I just said, I was drafted, and by the grace of the Lord, I was sent to Miami Beach for basic training. That didn't come lightly. I got a high recommendation from doctors in Johns Hopkins Hospital that recommended to my draft board that I be put in the Air Force. And that's how I wound up at that time. And I want to set the record straight. I hear it all the time otherwise. At that time, it was the Army Air Corps, not the Army Air Force. And everybody, we didn't become an Air Force until 1947. And that was a great day. But anyway, I spent my basic training at Miami Beach, and I think that was like 13 weeks. Then I was sent to Panama City, Florida. That's where I took buccanery training. And that was 6 weeks or 8 weeks, I don't remember exactly what. Then I was sent to March Field down near Riverside. And that's where we formed our crews, and we took our combat training. We were sent across the United States in railroad cars, no sleepers or anything, just in railroad cars, to Patrick Henry, Virginia. And we took a Liberty ship to Naples, Italy. Then we took what they called 40 and 8. At that time it was pulled by an engine, but originally it took 40 people and drawn by 8 horses. That's the reason they called it 40 and 8. Across the continent of Italy to Bari. And from there we were dispatched out to different bomb groups. And fortunately I got to 455th Bomb Group, 741st Bomb Squad. That's where, when we got there, the end of September, first part of October. Of course, a lot of you people that were in the 8th Air Force, you had already gone through hell and high water. But we were just new recruits in Italy. And between October and November, we had to do some training, simulated combat training. And my crew took our first mission on the 2nd of December. And the pilots at that time had to have an instructor pilot for 5 missions. And then they were on their own. And I flew on the 2nd of December as a crew with an instructor pilot. And on the 20th of December was the crew's second mission. And lo and behold, over Vienna we got hit. And we made it over Yugoslavia. We bailed out. It was about, I'm guesstimating, about 100 miles south of Zagreb. We all bailed out. The pilot, my original pilot, Lieutenant Batham, was the only man of our crew that got captured. The rest of us got with the Yugoslav Tito's partisans. And they looked after us. This was on the 20th of December. We walked at night, slept all day in a barn or a farmhouse, or wherever they could find room for us. And we'd sleep all day. And they would feed us what little bit of food they had. And it wasn't a heck of a lot, but it was food, and we survived. And they got us to a mission. And what I didn't know at the time, the OSS, and I'm sure you folks know what the OSS is, Office of Strategic Services, they had trained agents all over Yugoslavia. And from the 20th of December until around sometime between the 10th and the 15th of January, there was always one of these agents with us. And we got to this mission, and they radioed Italy to send the C-47 over for us, which they did. And we got back to Italy, and all the time, we had some episodes when we were walking at night and sleeping daytime. One night we went through the German lines. They were up on the top of a hill. We called it a mountain, but it was just a hill. We were in the valley. And me being the jokester in the crew, one of the guys says, "Hey Boyd, go up and adjust these, I forgot what you call the thing that adjusts the rate of fire on a machine gun." But anyway, he told me to go up and do that. And I said, well, I don't think he would be very receptive to me, and I didn't go. But anyway, buffer group, that's what you adjust the buffer group on the 50 caliber, and that adjusts the rate of fire, because the German was shooting at us like 1 or 2 rounds at a time. You know, when we had them set up for the airplanes, they were something like 60 rounds a minute, and you didn't shoot them very long at one time. I won't go into that. If you did, your barrel would be something similar to this, but you did it maybe 5 or 10 seconds and give it time to cool down. Anyway, they came and got us in the C-47, took us back to, well, they took us into Fuji, and we rode a 6x down to Berry, where they debriefed us, deliced us, and let us take a bath. And then they sent us back, sent my case back to 455th Bomb Group. And with 6 enlisted men and 3 officers that survived, we still continued to fly 24 more missions after that. But the first 12 or so was still tough targets over Germany, Austria, Romania, wherever. And the last ones was supporting the ground troops in northern Italy. But we can classify those as milk runs because there was nothing, no flak, maybe a little ground fire, but with nothing like we faced over Vienna or Nuremberg or Munich or Regensburg and those kind of places. I'll regress a minute, but back when I first was drafted, after a month or 6 weeks, I knew I was going to make the military my career, because I was one of the farm boys that the ground troops said that came there. I was one of those farm boys. And I didn't have a hell of a I never had gone to high school, but after I got into service, I determined that 6 weeks later I was going to stay in the service, and I did for 22 years. And I had some good assignments. Like I said, I went to Miami Beach for basic training. When I come back from the war, I came back to Atlantic City, New Jersey, and I spent 6 weeks there getting rehabilitated. Then I got assigned to Cheyenne, Wyoming, F.E. Warren Air Force Base. Then I got in the missile business down in Florida at Cape Canaveral, then it's Cape Kennedy Air Force Base now, I think it is. I spent 5 years down there investigating missiles and whatever. And then I got in NORAD in Maelstrom Air Force Base in Great Falls, Montana. And I didn't like it up there too well because the snow gets pretty deep. And I was a southern boy, and I didn't like it. So as soon as I was eligible, I kept telling my wife in January I was going to retire, and she didn't believe it. But June came around, I said, well, I finally done it. She said, what'd you do? I said, I put in my retirement papers. No, I don't want to go. But we did, we left. And I left and settled in Sunnyvale, California. Been there ever since. Wouldn't move for the world. Now, that is a glossary of my military career. And I must say, to follow up on what Ben said, the evading that we did was not pleasurable, but I'm grateful, and the rest of us on the crew are grateful that we survived. And I don't consider myself a hero. The ones that did not come back at all are the heroes. Now that's the end of my story. I'll be glad to answer whatever questions I can. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, back there.
You were shot down during the winter, is that correct?
That is correct, 20th of December.
And how long did it take you from the 20th of December to get back to Chernobyl?
From the 20th of December to what? I didn't hear that.
When did you get back to your base in
I
Chernobyl?
don't know the exact time, but it was sometime between the 10th and 15th of January of
Wow.
1945.
So it was weeks.
I'm sorry?
It was weeks trudging in the snow during the night.
Yes, yes,
Oh my God.
yes. Now, what I did, and most all of us did on the crew, before we left, we had at that time, some of you folks that flew in the 8th Air Force and early 15th Air Force didn't have heating or electrical suits, but we did. We were fortunate. When we first got there, we had those big fleece-lined jackets and trousers, but then we got the electric suits, the electric shoes, and we had big, I'm going to call them buckle-ups over top of the electric shoes. But before our missions, we would wire our GI shoes onto the harness of our parachute. And that was another episode that I got through. I neglected to hook the right-hand side of the parachute harness. And the only thing was the left hand was coming up, you know where. And I may not have had any children if I hadn't had my GI boots wired to the right-hand side. Because when I parachuted out, I learned that my right-hand side harness was not hooked. And I stood on my wired GI shoes to keep the pressure off of my manhood. So, does that answer your question?
Sir.
Okay, next. Yes, ma'am.
Could you go over in detail what happened when the pilot sounded the first bell to bail out and until you hit the ground?
Well, so you can fly with these snow. Some of them I've read recently.
Speak into the mic, please.
I've
Thank you.
read recently that some pilots rang the bell one time to prepare to bail out and 2 times to go. And some of them have turned it around. The pilots would ring it twice to prepare to bail out and 1 to hit the sill. Now, my pilot rang it twice, and when he rang it the 3rd time, you were on the way out. And I also read just recently that one pilot person rang it 3 times to prepare to bail out, and then 1 one to bail out. So when mine did it, I was already, when he rang it twice, I didn't have to be told twice to get out of the tail turret. I was back by the camera hatch. When I took the camera hatch off, threw it away, dropped it, and left. And when that last bell come to go, I saw the nose gunner float by. And I said, well, if he can do it, I can do it. But I was still scared as hell. So Bob, does that answer your question?
Yes. Well, also as a follow-on, so you bailed out and you were falling, and I know that day was overcast. As you're falling through the overcast, what happened next?
Well, that was one I don't like to remember, Bob. When the tail gunner, all the other gunners, with the exception of the ball gunner, we had backpack parachutes. Ball gunner had a chest type that he could not wear in the ball. It was set downside, when he came out, he had to hook it on. But anyway, mine, I had a backpack on, I pulled on it, and the hand would come off by itself without the cord that goes over the shoe, over my back to my shoe. And what Bob's referring to, I went into the undercast, we call it undercast, of course, and I had reached back like this to pull on the parachute, rip cord back there, and it came out, parachute open, and I'm here to talk about it. Does that answer your question, Bob?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, the first person I want to mention right now, Bob, over right here in the front, is the grandson of the instructor pilot that was with my pilot on that mission when they got shot down. His name is Lieutenant Bone, and Bob is his grandson. Is that right, Bob?
Yes, sir.
Okay, next question. Yes.
When you returned from Yugoslavia and went back into action, did your crew remain intact as a unit?
Yes.
Okay, and
The three officers and the 6 enlisted men continued as a crew. We had different main pilot on different ones.
right.
Okay.
And what happened to? Did you ever find out what happened to the pilot who was captured?
No, I know he got captured and he was repatriated.
Okay.
He was from a little town in northern California, Weaverville. I don't know whether any of you know where Weaverville is or not, but it's near Lake Shasta. And I'm guessing, I think it was around 1967 or 68. My wife and I took a trip where we moved in Sunnyvale was about 200 miles from Weaverville. We took a weekend to go up to Weaverville to see if we could, or if I could find out what happened to Lieutenant Basin. And nobody at that time knew him, because I know he got repatriated and came back, but he evidently didn't stay in Weaverville very long because it was just a small town.
Yeah.
And what happened to him after that, I don't know. Any more questions? Yes, Marcia.
How long did it take from the time that you parachuted out until you met up with Tito's partisans? Were they waiting for you, or did you have to walk some period of time before you found them? How did you find each other?
Okay. Most of us, when we hit the ground, it was all farm country. And we were not too far from farmhouses. And those farmers took us each individual in. And this happened about noontime. Yugoslav time, about noontime. And about 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock that night, we were all together. The individual farm people knew they were all in the resistance. And they protected us and got us to this, where we got with all the other partisans. And then from then on, the partisans took us from where there to the nation that we got to. Yes, Marcia.
Prior to your mission, did the Army Air Force, did they give you any kind of training as to what you were to do in the event that you had to bail out, or?
Yes, we had this, what they call escape kits. It had $50 in it per man. Each man had this kit, had $50 in American money in it. It had a cloth map of that area of Europe. And it was mainly for escape purposes. And that's what we used it for. And They didn't actually make us ever bail out, but we went through training, simulated training of bailing out. So we knew what to do, where they had to go. Now, it was myself, the two waist gunners, and the ball gunner went out to the camera hatch in the back. The bombardier, navigator, and nose gunner went out to the nose wheel opening. And the top turret, co-pilot, and the pilot went out to bomb bay doors. So everybody had a place to go, knew how to do it, because and like I said, we was formed at March Field near Riverside, California, and that was part of our training, is to simulate bailing out. Okay, does that answer your question, Marcia?
Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Just a comment, sir. You mentioned the difference between the Air Corps and the Air Force. Yesterday was the 67th birthday of the Air Force.
That's right.
Great day in our history.
Okay, but it did not come into being until 1947.
Right, September 18th.
That's right. And that was a big day for us. Not only did we form an Air Force, but we desegregated the military at the same time. That was the first time that we had in the Air Force. Now, I don't know about the Air Army, but I'm sorry. Oh, I thought you said something. But it was the first time in 1947 that blacks and whites were intermingled as a service. And at that time, I don't know how many of us remember it, but there wasn't any love between the blacks and whites. And we didn't think much of it at the time, but it worked out fine. Any other questions? Yes.
What was your posture? You were a tail gunner. Were you on your belly? Were you sitting up when you were firing? What?
Tail gunner, nose gunner, and the top turret gunner had seats to sit on, as like a regular chair. And the doors closed behind us. Now the top gunner, I think, was more or less, he was up in a bubble. And I'm not sure whether he had doors on his turret or not, but the nose gunner, and later in years, was up until I think B-24Ds or Js or long enough time, they had a turret installed. Before that, they didn't have a turret, just had two guns up there. But the nose gunner, the turret gunner, and the tail gunner had a seat to sit on. You got in and you sit down, and of course you had to be a little smaller than I am today to get in.
And when you were told to bail out, you're facing out the back of the airplane, so you have to turn around and go through a little compartment of some kind and then bail out. Is there a hole beneath the floor where you bail out?
Yes,
just right behind where you were sitting?
Yes, it is. No, it's not right behind. I'm guessing from where my turret, back of the turret is to this hole. It's called a camera hatch, where we took pictures over our bomb drops and all. They called it a camera hatch. It was about 10 feet from the tail gun position. And I fell out backwards. You fall out backwards into that condition. And you wind up on your back and then get back down there. And,
Thank you.
The camera hatch has a door that comes up, and then you usually have to turn it a little sideways to let it drop, and it'll go right through. It's not in your way. When you're up in the airplane and it's flying, it fits in a groove, and you can walk on it. No danger of it going through. Not like the bomb bay doors or the nose wheel doors. If you step on them, then you'll go right through them. They won't hold you, but the camera hatch will hold you. Now, one other thing I didn't tell you, some of you may know and some of you may not. There's a foundation, it's called the Collins Foundation. They have the only flyable B-24 in the world. They're stationed in Stowe, Massachusetts, and they make a tour yearly starting on the East Coast around February. They go down the East Coast, across the southern states, and up the West Coast, and then back to Stowe, Massachusetts once a year. They stop over 100 stops. And if it comes close to you, I would highly recommend it that you go to it. And you can ride on it for a fee. Now, if you make a donation to the foundation, in my case I did, and my daughter and I, every year it comes within 5 miles of my house. My daughter and I go to the stop next to that, and we fly from there to where I am. And where they end up at is Moffett Air Force Base in Mountain View, California. And if it ever comes close to you, it comes to a lot of states. It's got a website, Collins, I don't know exactly what it is, but collinsfoundation.org. And it's on the website. It has its schedule on there. So, but they only fly, to my knowledge, and I've been told this for 10 or 15 years, it's the only flying B-24 in existence today. So, any other questions? Yes, over here.
Along that line, the Confederate Air Force has a B-29 here in Oklahoma City, yesterday, today, tomorrow, and Sunday at Wiley Post, which is about 7 or 8 miles northwest of here, straight up Rockwell, which is 2 miles east, 2 miles west, and about 5 miles north.
Was that a B-29, or did you say it's B-29?
B-29, $10 admission, you can tour the cockpit.
Okay, well, okay, back to this Collins, I don't want to cut you off, but you reminded me something else. The Collins Foundation has a flying B-17. It's not the only one, because there's a lot of B-17 flying. They also have a B-25, they have a P-51, and I got P-51 flying formation with the flying 24 that Collins has. I showed it to Wynn this morning, and I took them last year when they came by last year at Moffett Field, and they have a ME-262. If any of you guys know about it, does anybody in here know what an ME-262 is? You know, it's the German version of a jet fighter plane. But they don't. They had it on one tour about 2 or 3 years ago, but for flying regulations or maintenance or something, they don't bring it around now anymore. But I think it's flyable in Stowe, Massachusetts. And I think that's about all I have to say if there's no more questions. Thank you for your time.